Hello, this is Valerie Feit, Co-Director of School Counseling. On behalf of Co-Director Corinne Ryan and our high school counselors, Susan Hannon, Amanda Menke, and Evan Miller, and high school principal Tina Wilson, we welcome you to Financial Aid Night. During this time of change, we're happy that our expert guest, Stacy Salinas, who is Director of Financial Aid at Dominican College, is with us again this year, and she will provide important information about paying for college. This meeting will be followed by Senior College Night at 7 p.m. And for this meeting and the next one, we ask that you send your questions to q&a@rhinec.org. So that's q&a@rhinec.org. This email address was included in the Blackboard Connect notification that was sent to you earlier today. If we have time, we will answer general questions. Please contact your school counselor if you have some specific concerns that relate to your student. And now, Ms. Salinas.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about dollars and cents and how to finance your college education. I've been in the business about 18 years, and as much as I like to say I'm an expert, we all know the federal regulations are ongoing and constantly changing. So should a question arise that I don't have the answer to, I would be more than happy to research and follow up with the correct response. So let's get started. Tonight, we're going to talk about the importance of planning for 4 years, how important it is to begin the process early, and how to actually apply for financial aid. A couple of financial facts about Dominican College. 100% of our students receive some form of a scholarship or grant. We administer more than $30 million in grants, scholarships, and loans annually. Our counselors are available to help families calculate their true out-of-pocket expense. Tonight, we're going to talk about the FAFSA application. We're going to discuss a little bit the CSS profile as well. I will give you web addresses for scholarship searches, the importance of loan application and who is eligible for, and once again, how important it is to apply early, and on top of that, apply annually. I like to use the saying that FAFSA is the key that opens the door basically to any and all financial aid. So besides being the dreaded word, what is FAFSA? FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Notice the first word I have in caps. You okay?
Stacy, we can't see your screen. Can you present it?
Oh, yeah, you can't. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
No. Did you hit the present now slide?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. It's coming up. There it is.
You see it?
Yep. If you could just go to present mode in PowerPoint, that'd be great.
All right, hold on just 1 sec. Okay, excuse me as I am. Remind me where present mode is.
I think if you go, or even if you just slide up to the first one, there's usually something on the bottom. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Notice that the first word is bolded and in caps. This application is absolutely free. I can't tell you how many times in counseling students and families, they have paid multiple hundreds of dollars for services that are free. This form is the form that the federal government uses to determine your eligibility for federal aid, including grants, scholarships, work study, and loans. Who is eligible to file the FAFSA? The student, and only the student, must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. They must have a valid Social Security number. They must be enrolled and accepted in a degree program. They must maintain what's called satisfactory academic progress within that college or university. And they must have obtained a high school diploma, a GED, or have been homeschooled in a setting approved under state law. How does this all work? Using the information you supply on the FAFSA, the federal processor determines the following: your expected family contribution, which is known as your EFC. This is the amount of money you and/or your parents can be expected to contribute towards your college cost. This EFC figure, which is calculated by the federal government, takes not only the size of the family, number in college, parent and student income, as well as assets into consideration. Like Dominican College, many institutions will then try to meet your need through what's called a financial aid package, which can include funds from the federal government, the state of New York, and the actual college itself. So financial need is based on the following equation. It's the cost of education minus the expected family contribution. Again, that EFC number is what schools are given once the FAFSA is filed. That difference is how we determine a student's demonstrated need. A couple of tips when filing the FAFSA. The FAFSA is now available October 1st of each year. So any seniors that are on the call, October 1st, 2020 is the earliest you can apply for FAFSA for the 21-22 academic year. Each school has their own unique school ID code, which can be found on the FAFSA application as well. I have here the appropriate website to go to file the FAFSA. Each student and parent must obtain their own FSA ID and password. This is what serves as your electronic signature. You're always going to use prior year information on the FAFSA application. So again, any seniors that are filing the 21-22 FAFSA, you will be required to report on the 2019 tax year. I have asterisked and bolded here that it's best to link directly to what's called the IRS data retrieval tool from the FAFSA application. You always want to use the name listed on your Social Security card, as the Department of Ed performs a data match with the Social Security Administration Office. If you are not required to file a tax return, you are still required to report any income received to financially support yourself in that given tax year. If the student is living with both biological parents in the same households, but they are not married, both parents' income is required on the FAFSA. If a parent is divorced or separated, only the custodial parent's income is required. If that custodial parent is remarried, the step-parent's income must also be provided. So definition of a custodial parent is the parent in which the student is being supported 51% or more. Typically, it's the parent in which the student is residing with. You never want to submit your tax return and/or W-2 form with the FAFSA application. If the student is selected for a process known as federal verification, the financial aid office at the various institutions that the FAFSA form was sent to will request these documents at a later time. If you are residing with a legal guardian, do not report that person's income on the FAFSA. I can't urge that enough. If a student that is listening is living with grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle, and that is their legal guardian, there will be a question that asks that on the FAFSA. Once you answer yes to being in legal guardianship, the parental information is completely wiped out. Always submit the FAFSA whether or not you think you qualify for aid. You always want to read your student aid report, which is known as your SAR, carefully. This SAR is the official record that the federal processor has received and processed that FAFSA application. If there's any missing information on your application, your financial aid eligibility will not be able to be determined until those corrections are submitted to the Federal Student Aid Center. So for example, if mom or dad or even the student forgot to electronically sign the FAFSA, that EFC figure that I advised earlier that's calculated by the feds cannot be determined until those signatures have been satisfied. For those that are completely new to the process, this is what the correct website looks like when you're going to apply for the FAFSA. And this is how you would actually go in and log in. I mentioned earlier about the IRS data retrieval tool. It's quick, easy, and it saves the parent and or student, both the student and or parent from having to get a copy of their federal tax return transcript. So right in the middle or 3/4 of the way down, there's a blue button that says link to the IRS. Once the parent and or student click on that link, they're going to be brought into the IRS data site. All the information will be retrieved from there and brought back automatically to the FAFSA website. The IRS data retrieval tool will be unable for some to use if a family filed an amended tax return, if no social security numbers were entered, if a student or parent are married but filed separate returns, this tool will not be available. That just means that you would have to go in and physically input line by line the questions that are asked. This is what the FAFSA confirmation page looks like. And I bring you all to, it's very difficult to see, but it's an orange button and it states, start your state application. This is where a student will go in to complete their New York State TAP application, which we're going to discuss further. So it's always best to link directly from this page. Again, a lot of the information that you have already entered in the FAFSA will then transmit over into the state site. So I'm going to quickly go over the processing results. The FAFSA is filed, the results are sent to the schools. The school verifies the information, and then they make what's called award offers, or they send award letters. Tonight, we're going to talk about 4 forms of financial aid. There are grants, which are typically free money, and those are usually based on need. Scholarships, again, free money. Those are based on merit, sometimes need as well. Work study is a student employment opportunity, and that's based on a student's demonstrated need. And then there are loans, which is money borrowed. The different resources that these are all supported by are the federal government, the state of New York, the college and universities itself, and any private entity that supports payments towards tuition, such as the PTSA. So now we're going to get into federal aid. These are grants, need-based. These do not have to be repaid. So there's the Pell Grant, which is designed for students with exceptional need. The maximum yearly award for the 2021 academic year is $63.45. This amount awarded is based on, again, that EFC figure that we get from the FAFSA application and a student's enrollment status. So if they're full-time, 12 credits or more, or half-time, etc. Then there's what's known as the SEOG grant, and this is designed for students, again, with exceptional need. Notice how I bolded here that this fund is limited. The federal government awards out what I like to refer to as different pots of money. Each institution is earmarked a certain dollar amount for SEOG. And from my experience, both on a private college and state college level, the way this SEOG award is given is on a first come, first served basis. So this is why it is very important to start the process as soon as you possibly can. Additional federal aid, there's work study. Again, this is need-based. This does not get repaid. Money is earned through a job on or off campus while the student is enrolled in school. The student actually receives a biweekly paycheck at each institution, and what they do with that money is really to their discretion. And the reason why I point that out is you may see it on an award offer as federal work study, but that money will never go against a student's bill. It's a physical check that they have to earn that will go to them every 2 weeks. This prepares students for the real world. Again, this is another fund that is limited, which is why it's important to get through the packaging funnel as early as possible. I always like to throw in some food for thought. If a student is being awarded work study as a freshman, and the parents, I've had this happen many a times, parents are a little nervous about allowing their son or daughter to work on campus while in their first year. The reason why I bring this up is, should you decline work study freshman year, chances are that institution will not re-award that student with work study sophomore, junior, or senior year. I do like to mention that there is a cap at 10 hours per week, and that's a federal limit. And obviously their work schedule cannot interfere with their class schedule. Additional federal aid, these are loans. These are directly in the student's name, and these are backed by the federal government. So these are loans, which means they must be repaid back. The difference between the two, subsidized is exactly what it's stating. The Department of Ed is subsidizing, paying the interest that accrues on this loan while the student is in school. For both loans, the student must be at least half-time, which is 6 credits or more. The interest rate is reset every July 1st for the upcoming academic year. So as of July 1, 2020, the interest rate is fixed at 2.75% for both of these loans. I do want to add in that in the current environment of COVID, those interest rates are at 0% until September 30th, 2020. So we don't know where the government's going with that, but that's where it stands currently. Repayment begins on each of these loans 6 months after the student drops below half-time status, so falls under 6 credits, or 6 months after they graduate from the institution. The typical or standard repayment term on these loans are 10 years. They can be extrapolated out as far as 30 years if need be. Annual loan limits apply for these loans as well. So here is a chart as a freshman. A student's looking at a total of $5,500 in loans. So as you can see, as they increase in their class standing, so does their loan eligibility. Additional federal loans is a Parent Plus loan. This is, again, another loan. It must be repaid back. This loan is in the parent's name, and it's available to parents of dependent students only. The parent must be creditworthy, so they must be approved for this loan. The interest rate is currently fixed at 5.3% on this loan. Repayment begins immediately. So right after this loan is dispersed in its entirety to the institution, it begins repayment. However, it can be deferred upon request with the loan servicer. If a parent is credit denied for this Parent Plus loan, a student is then eligible for an additional unsubsidized loan for that academic year. Now we're going to get into state aid, grants, and scholarships. So these do not get repaid back. As I mentioned earlier, by linking from the FAFSA, you're able to apply through the state of New York for the Tuition Assistance Program, also known as TAP. This requires a student and parent to be New York residents for 12 months prior to the start of that student beginning enrollment in a college. The student must be full-time, so they must be at least 12 credits. And again, they must complete that TAP application either by linking directly from the FAFSA where I showed you earlier, or by going directly to the state's website, which is listed here. This is renewed annually based on continued eligibility and annual completion of this application as well. The current highest award amount for the TAP is $5,165 for the academic year. Additional scholarship programs, there are what's called the Excelsior Scholarship, and there's also called the Enhanced Tuition Award. The Excelsior Scholarship requires a student to be pursuing an undergraduate degree at a SUNY or a CUNY. They must be and also stay on track for on-time completion, so they must complete within 4 years. They must earn 30 credits in that given academic year. The current maximum award by the state is $5,500 for this scholarship. However, this is the difference between any TAP, so any TAP minus the Excelsior Scholarship would be the difference in the amount that they would be awarded. So if I'm receiving, say, $3,000 in TAP, I apply for the Excelsior Scholarship and I'm approved, the difference of $2,500 would be awarded towards me in what's called the Excelsior Scholarship. It's up to 2 years for pursuit of an associate's degree and up to 4 years for a bachelor's degree. The family household adjusted gross income per federal income tax returns is $125,000. So in order for a student to qualify, the family's adjusted gross income must fall at 125 or less. As I mentioned, there's what's called the Enhanced Tuition Award. This mirrors the Excelsior Scholarship, but there's 2 slight differences. The Enhanced Tuition Award is for students attending a private college in New York State. So for instance, Dominican College is a private institution. We would offer this Enhanced Tuition Award. And they offer up to $500 additional, which would bring you to $6,000. All follow the same rules. The difference between TAP and the Enhanced Tuition Award is what the net amount would be. The requirements stand the same. What I do like to point out is that for both the Excelsior and the Enhanced Tuition Award, a student is required to sign a contract with the state of New York for agreeing that for the length of time the award was received and employed, they must be in the state of New York. So if I'm coming in as a freshman and I'm awarded the Enhanced Tuition Award and I'm awarded it for the 4 years I'm in school, by signing that contract, I'm agreeing to stay within the state of New York, to reside, live, and to be employed for those 4 additional years within the state of New York. And that's post-graduation. Should I go against either, say, Dominican College is right on the borderline of Bergen County. So that's New Jersey, for those of you that are unfamiliar with that. So say I'm offered a job in Bergen County, New Jersey, and I take that job. I will be required to pay back this Enhanced Tuition Award. So it reverts to a loan if I go against the contract that I'm signing. The only benefit is that it's at a 0% interest rate if it does get reverted to a loan. Institutional scholarships. It's important that you understand these are going to vary, obviously, institution by institution. At Dominican College, our institutional merit scholarships range from $6,000 to $18,000 per year. The student must be enrolled at least 12 credits or more, so they must maintain full-time enrollment. And the amount awarded is based on a student's GPA upon entry or application and acceptance into the college. So we're going to talk about direct costs of education. We use these costs to prepare the financial aid package. We take the direct costs, so it's tuition, fees, and if the student's residing on campus, room and board as well. And we deduct that EFC. Again, that's that number that we're getting strictly from the FAFSA application. That's how we come up with the student's demonstrated need. We then take that need, we subtract any Pell, federal Pell Grant eligibility, any federal SEOG grant, any New York State TAP eligibility, any institutional scholarships and or grants, and that's how we determine the student's out-of-pocket cost. I keep mentioning the financial aid package. These are typically made up of grants, works, scholarships, loans, and or work study. A student's package is based on a family's financial strength, also known as the EFC. Most packages include loans, and I draw your attention to that because as these award offers start coming through, it's super important to break it out by what's a scholarship, what's a grant, and what's a loan that's going to actually have to be paid back. Again, in the 18 years of me doing this and working at various institutions, there are a number of colleges and universities that will include, say, a recommended Parent Plus loan for a certain dollar amount. That Parent Plus loan requires a credit check. So that's not guaranteed money. So what I'm saying is never only look at the bottom line figure that an institution is awarding. Make sure it's broken out and you understand what is free money, what is money that's going to have to be paid back, and what is money that's actually going to have to be applied for. So what if the financial aid package is not enough? And this doesn't only go for Dominican College, this is at any institution. We discussed a federal parent loan. There are various alternative loans which the student would be borrowing. We always encourage a student, if they're going to go that route, to apply with a credit-worthy cosigner to lock in a lower interest rate. And then there's also the tuition management payment plan. So many institutions will work with a third-party vendor for an interest-free payment plan, and this is broken out typically over 10 months. I bold and put that in red because I think it's super important for families to understand that that is an interest-free payment plan. There's a slight enrollment fee. It varies by institution. At Dominican, it's about $47 per semester. But what I always advise families is what is realistic? How much can you ultimately come out of pocket each month that you can live with? Anything additional that's needed, then borrow. Because remember, that loan is going to be accruing interest. So the point of me mentioning that is that you don't only have to go with one financing option. You can use one, you can use two, you can use all three. I'm quickly touching on the CSS profile. Dominican College solely requires the FAFSA application, but the CSS profile is required for about 400 colleges, and this is how they determine their institutional funds. This application is available October 1st each year, and it collects more comprehensive income, asset and household information, and it goes much more deeper than the FAFSA application itself. It'll ask for families' home value, their retirement value. They'll ask for non-custodial parent information for divorced families or unmarried families. It will also align with the FAFSA's use of prior year income. So again, you're going to be reporting on 2019 tax information for the 21-22 academic year. The important thing here is that this application does cost money. It's $25 for this, plus $16 per college. More of the prestigious colleges require this application. So I know I'm pretty adamant about making my point how the FAFSA is clear, but I also just want you to know that the profile, there are some institutions that may require this application as well. Special circumstances. If there's anything that cannot be reported on the FAFSA, we want to hear from you. I highly encourage a written explanation be sent to the financial aid office at each college. If there's been a change of employment status, if there are medical expenses not covered by insurance, any unusual dependent care expenses, or even a change in marital status. As I mentioned earlier in the slideshow, the FAFSA and the CSS profile are reporting on prior year income. So we all know, if you're filing the 21-22 FAFSA application, 2019 may have been, a great year. And then when you look at 2020, COVID hit. So I know that has had a major impact on a lot of families. So I highly encourage that you reach out to financial aid offices, and it really comes down to documentation. We would go in once the proper documentation is submitted, and we would basically paint a more realistic picture of a financial aid status, or a financial status for that family, given their special circumstances. There are some private scholarship search engines that I have listed here. Rather than have you all scurrying to get this down, I am going to forward this PowerPoint presentation. So feel free. I always say jump online, or have the students jump online for a couple of minutes. There is free money out there to be had. And some helpful web resources. And just to recap, the importance of this whole process is to be proactive. October to February, you want to review deadlines. You want to complete the FAFSA application, college searches, the college application process, and possibly the CSS profile. February to May, schools will send award letters. That actually has moved up depending on the institution. At Dominican, we typically send award letters as long as we have a FAFSA application in and the student's been accepted. By Thanksgiving, those students can plan on receiving award offers from the institution. June and or July, depending on the institution, that's when the fall semester bill is sent, and it usually comes with the due date of August. So it's a lot of information here. If I could just ensure it, I can't tell you how important it is to make sure you understand what each institution's requirements are. Just to give you a little bit of experience, I started my career at Fordham University as a financial aid counselor. By no way am I knocking Fordham University. What I'm trying to do is open your eyes. There were so many students that did not realize they required the FAFSA and the CSS profile. By the time those families realized they had to do the profile, it was already too late. The majority of the federal funds that were in those pots of money I mentioned, those had already been awarded out, and as well as the institutional aid at that point. So it's super important to understand what the requirements are and what the priority deadlines are for those requirements at each institution.
We did have a question, Stacy.
Sure.
Someone asked if you could restate the information regarding legal guardianship as it applies to applying. You mentioned don't submit the information, and if you do, the parent information gets wiped out. This should happen, or it should not be addressed at all?
Okay, so if a student is in what we call legal guardianship, or what the feds define as legal guardianship, if there is something by the courts, if there has to be documentation proving that. Many institutions are going to ask for proof of that. So if a student answers, yes, I am in legal guardianship, the institution will then follow up requesting the documentation. But by clicking that that student is in legal guardianship, the parental data, anything, any tax information, any name, social, none of that information will be requested from that student.
Thank you.
No problem.
Stacy, we can't thank you enough for the incredible job that you've done for us this year. I know that many parents were concerned and eager to hear from you, so we can't thank you enough. And we hope that we'll see you next year. For those who are tuned in, stay on and watch our next presentation, which will be at 7 o'clock, and that's senior college night. Okay, I think we're good, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Stacy.
Best of luck. Take care.